22. Rise and shine, little darlings. Shake, rattle, and hum. Get into that kitchen and rattle those pots and pans. It's time for a morning word, so grab you some Java and a Bible and join us here for a few moments as we break God's word. We will be in Mark chapter 8. Mark chapter 8. So let's rise and shine, little darlings. Let's get with the program. Here we go. Let me get all this done. Get y'all over there. Kim Barnett, Juliet, Josh, Al, Gary Skipper. Good morning. Sonny Burnett, Amanda Jewell. Good morning, every one of you. Brenda Booth. Hope everyone's doing well. Had a good night's sleep. Morning, Brown. What's going on, my man? Big Al in Indiana. Miss Linda Parker. Good morning to you. Tyler, my man, turning and burning with that paintbrush. Tyler Turner. Tina Benton, Vining. Tina, get the cowboy up. Hey, Randy. Hey, Heather. Good morning. Gail, good morning. Good morning, Kathy. Up and at it, tell them. Good morning, Miss Jimmy Jean Birchfield. Tess, there you are. Big Al's looking for you. Hey, Kim Houston, good morning. Rise and shine, tell them. EJ, you at work yet? Willie Kelly, my man. Shake, rattle, and hum, Big Will. Sherry Shaw, otherwise known to my nephews as Shay Shay. Hey, Minaj, good to see you this morning. Miss Becky Elmore. Heather, good morning. Desiree, you way down the line. You usually up there at the top. Good morning to you. Hey, Miss Lane, how you doing? Hope you're feeling a little bit better every day. There you go, Big Al. Tess says you're handsome. Trisha and Victory, good morning to y'all. Mike Pate, my man. I'm glad you came Saturday night, Mike Pate, and I am glad you enjoyed it. I did too, brother. Jim Stockdale did a wonderful job. Zach and Chris did a great job of planning it. Sean and all the musicians playing. Robertson's Barbecue for supplying the food. It was great. Hey, Daryl. Johnny the Mac Man Clark. Is this Ashton or Jesse or both this morning? Ashton, how is it up there in Tennessee? Hey, Rhonda. Days have gone. Get after it. That's right. Tell them, Randy. Most folks have already got a day in. Hey, Anita. Nikki. Good morning to y'all. Terry. Ramona, good morning to you. Miss Faye Taylor. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate that, Miss Faye. Good morning, Michelle. Morning to you too, my friend. Amy, good morning to you. Kevin Trim, Lakeisha Anthony, good morning to you. Talisa. Artie Shaw, yes sir. Gonna be raining here today and tomorrow in Northport and Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So y'all be prepared accordingly. Hey, Sharon Shirley. Good, I'm glad, Elaine. Hey, Daphne, good morning to you. Philip Quigley from Orange Beach. What in the Sam Hill are you doing, Quig? Man, I ain't seen you since we graduated. Well, I have seen you since we graduated high school, but it's been a long time, man. Ewan Trotman, good morning. Ewan, are you from New Zealand or Australia? Hey, Gail, Denise, both. Okay, it's very windy, about to rain there too. Okay. Randy Hudgens says, tell y'all who. Tell you back. Yeah, it's going to be Randy Hudgens, yeah. Good morning, that's right. Hey, Preston, what's going on, my man? Look at Justin Moss. Get on up in here, boy. Good to see you. Paul Forsher, Lord have mercy. The band's all back together again. Good morning to you, Daphne. Good morning. Good morning, Randall Atkins. Good morning to you, man. Hadn't seen you in a while. Okay, Robin, we're going to pray here in just a minute. Brittany Wojak. All right, guys, let's get our toast in. Let's get our cups up. Toast to the morning word crowd. Get a little sip for the trip. Thank y'all for being with us. The morning word this morning is, here's your sign. Before we get started, we just want to give a shout out to our educators, first responders, and military personnel and say thank you for the work that you do around our communities, our nation, and the globe. We are forever indebted to you for the job that you do, and we thank you for it. I want Robin Wade, who's on here this morning, has expressed a need for prayer. And also Miss Amy Lewis, who is on here. She is one of our teachers and coaches, and I forget the title that you have in sports secretary, coordinator, kind of planner, event scheduler, the catch-all. She's been with us for several years at the school, led our volleyball team to the state and the junior varsity to undefeated season and a state title. And she has been dealing with an ongoing, progressively kind of painful situation with her foot. It's on Facebook if you go to Amy Lewis, and she's asked for prayer. Basically, it's nerve damage from previous injuries, and there's not a whole lot, quote unquote, that they can do for it right now. But we're getting ready to talk about the miracle working power of Jesus. And so I want to everybody just stop and pray right now. We'll also pray for Ukraine, and we'll pray for peace in this war situation. We'll pray for healing and a breakthrough for Amy Lewis, and for the unspoken request of Robin Wade. Now, I'm not going to lead it in prayer. We're just going to pause for a moment of prayer, and I need all of you now to just touch and agree. I'm going to be touching this iPad here that I have. You touch your phone so that we can kind of connect one another and join our faith, and let's have a moment of prayer for them. Okay? Amen. All right. Turn to page 1777. That's my Bible. For you, it will be Mark chapter 8. Mark chapter 8. We're believing for a breakthrough, for whatever it is you're praying for, Robin Wade, and we're also praying and believing God for a breakthrough for you, Miss Amy Lewis, Coach Amy Lewis, I'm used to saying. If you'll go to Mark chapter 8, we're just going to read one verse. I know that that's an oddity for me because I think the Bible speaks more plainly about itself than I do. So I like to read a lot of verses to kind of give a background. But Jesus has been on the move. He just fed 4,000 people as he did the 5,000 people. He did it with 7 loaves and a few fish. And they picked up 7 baskets of scraps, as we call it here in the South, leftovers. And they got in a boat and they went over to an area or a region called Dalmanutha. You can find that in verse 10. When he's in this area called Dalmanutha, it says in verse 11, Then the Pharisees came out and began to dispute with him, seeking from him a sign from heaven, testing him. But he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, Why does this generation seek a sign? Assuredly, I say to you, no sign shall be given to this generation. No sign shall be given to this generation. I do want to read a couple more verses because I'm going to mention this and you won't understand it. And he left them, and getting into the boat again, departed to the other side. Now the disciples had forgotten to take bread, and they did not have more than 1 loaf with them. It seemed like the guys can't keep up with their bread, doesn't it? Then he charged them, saying, Take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, It's because we have no bread. But Jesus, being aware of it, that is, their thought and their conversation, said to them, Why do you reason thus? Why do you reason because you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive nor understand? Is your heart still hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? And having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves to the 5,000? How many baskets full of fragments did you take up? And they said to him, 12. Also, when I broke the 7 for the 4,000, how many large baskets full of fragments did you take up? And they said 7. So he said to them, How is it that you do not understand? Now, let's go back up to verse 11. The Pharisees come out. They begin to dispute with him, seeking from him a sign from heaven. Jesus, and they're testing him. But he sighed deeply in his spirit. In other words, he's a little bit exasperated. It would look something like this today. Oh, my gosh. Like that. All right. And he says, Why does this generation seek a sign? Assuredly, I say to you, no sign shall be given to this generation. Now, here's the problem. Jesus is performing miracles left and right. Okay? He's performing miracles left and right. He is the sign. Okay? He's the sign from God. He is the Word made flesh. He is God in a body. He's the sign. Now, they won't believe in him because he is not saying, teaching, and doing what they want him to do. Plus, they already have preconceived ideas, and they've already made up their mind. This is indicated down here in the conversation with the disciples, and that's why I wanted to read on down. He says to the disciples who are struggling to believe that Jesus could provide for them some bread if they forgot to bring some, he said, "Why do you reason that you have no bread? Do you not perceive nor understand? Is your heart still hardened?" When he warned them about the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod, he was talking about the leaven of a unbelieving heart, of a hardened heart, one that has become resistant to the truth and refuses, I'm glad I thought about that phrase, refuses to see the truth and believe. Their heart is already hardened. They've already made up their mind. And that's why Jesus tells those Pharisees and those unbelievers whose hearts have been hardened that you will not get a sign. Now, and they wanted a sign from heaven because they thought a sign from heaven would be something that only Jesus could do. Now, pray tell, they're not looking at the loaves, they're not looking at the fishes, they're not looking at a person raised from the dead, a little girl Tabitha raised from the dead, the widow from Nain's son. They're not looking at opening blinded eyes, opening the mute mouths, putting the cripple back on his feet. They're just bypassing all of that. They want to see something big, all right? They want to see something big and from heaven. And Jesus knows, and here's something that we need to understand. Jesus knows, and here's a major point that I want you to get this morning. Those people, whether it be you or I or anyone in the world, the people who require from God a sign in order to believe will not believe once they see the sign. If they would, Jesus would give them another one. Would give them one. But they have already decided that they're not going to believe. And he goes on. I want you to look at this one in Matthew 24. Let me go to Matthew 16:4. In Matthew 16:4, here's what Jesus says. Okay? He says, "Then the Pharisees and the Sadducees," I'm looking at verse 1, "came and testing him," that's what they were doing in Mark that we're going over, asked that he would show them a sign from heaven. There it is again. He answered and said to them, "When it is evening, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red, and in the morning it will be foul weather, for the sky is red and threatening." And this is the little saying that they have: red skies at night, sailors' delight. It means it's going to be pretty weather tomorrow. Red skies in the morning, sailors take warning. It's a common thing that if you see red clouds in the morning, that there's a good chance of rain that day. So he says, "Hypocrites, you know how to discern the face of the sky, but you cannot discern the signs of the times. A wicked and adulterous," he just said this in Mark 8, we just read it. "A wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign shall be given to it except," here's the only sign that Jesus gives that is necessary for people to believe. The only sign, here's your sign. The only sign that Jesus gives that is necessary for people to believe is the sign of the prophet Jonah. What is that? Well, he tells them later that the sign of the prophet Jonah was that Jesus, just as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the fish and then lived again, that he would be 3 nights in the belly of death, in the belly of Sheol, that he would die and be raised from the grave. And so raised from the dead and come out of the grave. An empty tomb is your sign. You don't need another sign to believe. An empty tomb is your sign. Now, here's the problem. There are going to be people, and there are today, and the number is growing, that are fixated on signs and wonders. They are chasing the miraculous. Now, don't get me wrong when I talk about this, but I'm telling you, I know Jesus is a miracle working God. I am a living miracle. Everybody that was at my wreck and worked on me in the hospital said he's not going to live. I know something about miracles, okay? I am one. I am not downplaying miracles or the miracle working power of Jesus, but I'm talking about people that are chasing signs in order that they might believe. And what's happening is you'll see a defect. Well, let me just go over there. In Jesus talking about the last times, and the signs that will accompany them, he says in Matthew 24, "For then there will be great tribulation such as has not been since the beginning of the world until that time, nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Then if anyone says to you, 'Look, here is the Christ.'" Now, why would they say that? Well, first of all, they're looking for him. Number two is they're looking for somebody that's performing miracles. Hold on, here it comes. If they say, "Look, here is the Christ," or "there," meaning there he is, do not believe them. For false Christ and false prophets will rise. Will rise when? With the times, and become more prolific as the times grow harsher and nearer to the return of Jesus. For many false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. Now, here's something that you need, a little mantra, a little phrase, a little truth that you need to mull over in your mind and kind of get deposited there so that you and I can stay in line with Scripture and not be led astray and keep our feet planted on solid ground, knowing that we serve a miracle-working God. But here's the deal. Here's the little phrase. Believers do not follow signs. Signs follow believers. Believers do not follow signs. Signs follow believers. In other words, when Jesus left, Jesus was the sign. I mean, you're looking for a sign. He's the sign, all right? People get enamored with the supernatural. Let me tell you something. Satan knows that, and he's going to feed you a bait of it, okay? He's coming masked as an angel of light. And there's people that's following him. I'm not going to disclose names, locations, and places, but let me tell you something. When you get into places and in group environments is where it's most prominent, group environments, there becomes a groundswell of emotion. And people start seeing, talking about, pointing out clouds in the air, gold dust falling out of the sky. I'm going, what in the Sam Hill are y'all doing? And people become enamored with that. They're looking for Jesus to raise people from the dead. Now listen, Jesus raised people from the dead. But they're thinking that Jesus is going to raise everybody from the dead. Let me tell you how many. Jesus saved gazillions. He healed hundreds, if not thousands. Let me tell you how many people Jesus raised from the dead. You ready? 3 in 3 years. All right. So people running around here saying, I saw somebody raised from the dead. You ain't seen nobody raised from the dead. And so my point is this, people become enamored with that and they start following signs. Well, let me tell you what Jesus said. If you're in Mark, let's go with what Jesus said. All right. Let's go to Mark chapter 16. Let's go to Mark chapter 16. And let's go over to verse 14. Later he appeared to the 11 as they sat at the table, and he rebuked their unbelief and hardness of heart. All the way up to the bitter end, they couldn't put 2 and 2 together with regards to his death and his burial and his resurrection. They just did not have that factored in to the kingdom when they started with him. But they caught on to it after he was risen from the dead. because they did not believe those who had seen him after he had risen. And he said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. He who believes and is baptized will be saved, but he who does not believe will be condemned. Watch this now. And these signs will follow those who believe. Oh, snap. They went from following signs to signs following them. It says, in my name they'll cast out demons, they'll speak with new tongues, they will take up serpents, and if they drink anything deadly, it will by no means hurt them, and they will lay hands on the sick and they will recover. You say, well, Pastor Randy, I get the laying hands on the sick. I kind of even get that speaking in tongues, but what about this other stuff? What about this handling snakes? Let me tell you how I handle snakes, with a hoe or a shotgun. What it was talking about there was, if you'll remember in the book of Acts, when Paul was shipwrecked, that they went out looking for firewood. And they put firewood on the fire and built it up because it was cold and rainy that night. And a viper was drawn to the warmth and came out of the fire. And as Paul was reaching down to pick up a stick, it bit him. He shook it off, and everybody said they all stood there waiting for him to die. He didn't die. Why? Because God had a mission for him. Listen, you ain't going to die here until God's mission for you is over with. All right? You're not going to die here unless God's mission for you is over with. I'm living proof of that. Paul was living. So Paul was bitten by a snake, okay? He was bitten by a snake in the mission field working for the king. He wasn't testing his faith trying to see if he could hold this timber rattler and not bite him. That's stupid, okay? You go chase that sign's going to bite you in the you-know-what. And it's probably going to make you real sick if it doesn't kill you, which is probably what stupid needs to reap when it exercises stupid. So we don't handle snakes to prove our faith. You want to prove your faith, stay true to God in the hard times and the good times. It said they'll cast out demons. You don't believe in demons, you turn on the news. You'll be looking at them. You'll be looking at them. You'll be looking at them. You can see them at work, in the dress and in the style and in the the dress and the style of dress and the hair and the bones and the metal and all that stuff. People just self-mutilating. I told you all about the demons and the demoniac, right? So you're catching on to that. But my point is this. We are not to chase signs. We don't need God to do not one other thing on this planet for us. He doesn't need to prosper me anymore. He doesn't need to give me favor anymore. He didn't need to open. I don't need a parking space at Bryant Denny Stadium on the front row for God to prove to me He's alive and that He's God. He doesn't need to heal me. I'm saying things that are necessary for God to prove that Jesus is Lord. He need not do one other thing. He does not have to do one other thing. He has given us a sign, and that is an empty tomb. But then you know what He did? He left behind signs. And that's me and you. You are the sign. Jesus said they'll know you're my disciples by your love for one another. And the signs will follow you. You're my body in the earth. That's why we stopped and prayed a while ago and laid hands on in agreement that God might move and do miraculous works of healing and deliverance, or whatever it is that it is. But we're not chasing those signs. Those signs are following us. We're petitioning God the Father. And there's a big difference that people are looking for signs in order to believe instead of being believers and signs following them. So just leave here this morning knowing that Jesus Christ need not do any other thing on this planet to prove that He's the Son of God. The evidence is plain, okay? In His person, in His preaching, in His prayers, and in the performance of the miracles that He chose to do. And even then, listen, if you'll read, when they go to Bethsaida, He's going to heal a guy that's a mute. But you know what He did? He took him out of town because the town was filled with unbelievers. He had already chastised Chorazin and Bethsaida for their unbelief. So He takes the kid out of town so nobody can see him and heals him and sends him back into town. He refuses to work His miracle working power in the people who only follow the miracles. They're it's hard for me to say, but they're supernatural chasers. Okay, they're looking for something in the fifth dimension. And let me tell you something. You You go milling around over there looking for signs and wonders and spirits and clouds and gold dust. I'm going to tell you something. You'll find it. You'll find it. Sure will. It ain't going to be good. They're going to do you like they did that demoniac. They'll spank you naked and hide your clothes, and you're going to run back to the church. And so here's the deal, guys. You're the sign in the earth. We're the salt and the light. Jesus left us behind. We are the sign. Your life, your changed life is a sign. The way you conduct yourself in the middle of a crisis is a sign. The way we love our wives, the way our wives love our husbands, the way we raise our children, that's a sign. The way we worship God, that's a sign. The way we go to church on Sunday, instead of knocking around doing everything else that everybody else does, that's our sign. That's the sign. You're different, set apart, holy unto God. We are the signs of the earth. We are the restraining force of God in the planet. You take the church out of the world and you ain't got nothing but just raw, pure, unadulterated, unfiltered, and unleashed chaos and wickedness and evil. We are the sign. Jesus left us behind. And he said, you go be my sign. You go be my salt. You go be my light. You're my body in the earth. So quit chasing signs. Let signs chase you. And be satisfied with an empty tomb. God is still on the throne. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Good Lord willing, the saints don't rise. Peace out.